I wanted this to be an impromptu video where I just like pick up the camera and talk to you with so much confidence, but then life had other plans because I tried to record it on the computer and the computer just shut off. So here I am recording it again, trying to recreate the cinematic magic that was captured in the first one. But truly, this is going to be one of those videos where I am creating this as a memory for myself. And if you choose to be here, please know that there is no massive EB1 takeaway by the end of this talk. It's just me reflecting on the 2 years that I have been on this journey of helping people out in their EB1 mission full time. So I wanted to give you behind the scenes why I do what I do, what are the things that I have learned through this journey, the lessons that I have accrued, the mistakes that I have made, of which there were many, the things that I have tried, the things that worked out, the things that did not work out, all that good stuff. So if that interests you, please stick around. By the way, I have 14 years of flight time behind me. I'm currently sitting at a hotel in Doha. Tomorrow, I fly out to India and be with my parents for the next 3 months. So we shall see how that goes. But honestly, this is the second time that I have done this, where I've packed my bags and I've moved back to Kolkata without a return ticket, and then come back after 3 months. So I want to recreate that again this year. Cannot wait to eat all the food. Oh my God, for the past 9 months, I've cooked for myself and I'm not the best cook. বাড়ি গিয়ে অনেক কিছু খাবো। By the way, I'm Bengali, in case you didn't know. There are 4 types of items that I'm very much looking forward to eating. Number one is Bari Khawar. Mongoladi, my house help, the best person in the whole damn world. She cooks food which has converted me from a Bari Khawar person to a Barite Khawar person, where I choose Bari Khawar very proactively. So that Bari Khawar has to happen. Second is street food. I need puchka, I need churmur, I need jhalmuri. Like all of those things need to happen. Aloo chop, chicken cutlet, fish fry, all of those things. Third is legacy restaurants. We have to go to Mocambo. I know, if even if Peter Cat is a shit show, I have to go. And then there are new restaurants that have opened up, like the gastro pubs and everything. Hi, chai packing. If you see one, it is bad luck. So bring your partner. Anyways, so I'm waiting for that flight. But in the meantime, I wanted to record this video again and tell you who I am. In case you don't know me, my name is Aditi Paul. In a previous life, I used to be a professor of communication studies. Then I got my green card through that line of work, and I made the egregious mistake of sharing that story in 2022. And since then, I haven't stopped talking about EB1 because it's such a fun topic to talk about. But honestly, I shared my journey in 2022 not because I wanted to, because Punita Parikh, the LinkedIn coach I was working with at the time, told me that that story is very powerful. So I shared it. It got a million likes or some such, a million impressions. And since then, little by little, I started building an ecosystem around EB1. Watch me use big terms like ecosystem. What I was doing the next obvious thing. So when people started approaching me, I was like, Bhai, I can't answer everybody on a one-on-one. So let me put all of them in a Slack community. So that Slack community grew from 0 to 7,000. And the more I talked about EB1, the more other people who got their EB1 wanted to talk to me. So I got them together and I did master classes, I did boot camps. And when I started talking with EB1 recipients, the people who got their EB1s through their lawyers, those lawyers we started talking, and that became a network in and of itself. So I started doing boot camps, sessions, workshops with them as well. So between 2022 to 2024, that is what I was up to. But in 2024 January, I decided, बहुत हो गया this chutput. I want to see if I can do this full time, because I wanted to see if this can become a thing or not. So I paid this business slash social media um, guru who is a pro at monetizing audiences a wad of cash, $3,000. And within 2 months, I was fired from my job. What a great time to not have income and pay $3,000. But to be honest with you, when I got laid off, I was no longer a professor. I had migrated into the industry as a user experience researcher. And more than being disappointed of being fired, I was a little shocked, because the first thing that I thought about after that, thank God I had my green card, so I didn't have to think about the 60-day clock at least. But the first thing I thought about was health insurance, because between 2010, since I started my professional journey, to 2022, I did not even have to think about health insurance. I always got that from my employer. So the first thing I thought about is, like, how do I cover my ass when medicine is concerned in the United States of America, the best country for health care systems. So after that shock, I talked with the business coach I was working with, and I said, "Listen, I got fired. What do I do?" And he said, "Listen, whatever you do, I'm with you." But I am a very cautious risk taker. So I was not like, "Fuck this, let me just do my way or the highway thing." I'm like, "Listen, bhai, I'm going to give myself 1 month." I got let go in February, and I'm like, "Okay, I want to see if this is viable in March or not. If it's not viable, then I'm going to start looking for jobs." I did not want to look for jobs in the same area that I was working with. I was not particularly enjoying it, because, yeah, I was not particularly enjoying it anyway. So I was like, okay, fine. If I have to feed my mouth, I'm going to get a job. But my first option is, let's see if this works or not. So I did a hard launch with an astute business strategy. I used a meme. Uh, and through that meme, a lot of folks started reaching out. And in March, 9 people said yes to working with me. They say that you never forget your firsts. They're right, because those 9 people who said yes to working with me, they did me such a solid. They thought they were helping me, when in fact, they thought I was helping them for EB1, when in fact they were helping me as well. They were helping me keep this fleeting hope alive that this could become a thing, or I could, like, make sustainable money off of it. So I cannot name their second names, but I will name their first names. Thank you, Arun. Thank you, Gauri. Thank you, Manali, Shri. All the people who said yes to me in the first month. Your yes meant more to me than you know. So that coasted March. And then I was like, okay, fine. If March can sustain itself, can April sustain itself? Or April be sustain ho gaya, can June sustain itself? Little by little, it started becoming sustainable. And here we are, in December 30th, 2025. By the grace of God, I have been able to keep up. And not just that, it gives me deep joy in doing the work that I do. Because in a couple of minutes, I'll probably tell you how it honestly heals my inner child in a way that I never thought about it being healed, or this work having that kind of an effect on me. But I want to talk about what happened in 2024 and 2025. So 2024 to beat gaya with, like, survival mode, that okay, I need to make this work. I need to not be broke. But every single month turned out to be a month where people wanted to work with me. But I had my own misgivings during this time. Even though I had 2.5 years of EB1 experience behind me in conducting masterclasses, workshops, webinars, clarity calls, everything, I thought that people would see me as more of a facilitator and connector rather than a standalone mentor, because I did a really good job in getting people together in a room who could teach about EB1, to the point where I'm like, do I have anything to offer? So I carried that self doubt for a long time. And the way that I got over that self doubt was just muscle power, where I told all these people who signed up with me, they're like, listen, I'm going to work with you for 2 hours every single week. I will work with you. Imagine seeing me for 2 hours. I became that tyrannical uh, ट्यूशन सर और टीचर who you have, like खुद ने पढ़ाई नहीं किया हमने, and they come and tupcofy at our door on Thursday at 6 p.m. ready to teach us about covalent bonds. I became that professor because I'm like, okay, I'm here. Have you done the work that we assigned you on Monday? And these are all people who have like children who have a demanding job. So clearly they were not able to breathe with all this mentorship that I was providing to them. So I was like, okay, fine. Let me loosen my grip a little bit. What I can teach in 2 hours, can I teach it in 1 hour? And if I can teach it in 1 hour, can I teach it in 30 minutes? And if I can teach it in 30 minutes, can I teach it in 20 minutes? So I started condensing the time that I had with my clients, and try and provide the same amount of value and transformation they were looking for. So that was the entire 2024. Then came 2025, and 2025 brought another set of insecurities again, where this time around I realized something about myself. I realized that um, having my calendar booked every single day with one on one sessions was burning me out because I am a one woman army. I write my own LinkedIn content. I shoot my own YouTube videos. I edited some of those videos as well. Then launching campaigns to acquire clients, then serving them, then retaining them. Like all of those mental faculties were like bogging me down, where I'm like, man, am I become thinking about content and all of this acquisition so much? When am I going to be able to deliver? And even if I deliver, I want to do it with a happy heart. So to make it sustainable, I thought, okay, can I do this in a group setting? So I launched that design in March. And little by little, I grew that confidence where I saw that even if I'm not meeting my clients one on one, like for 1 hour, am I still being able to provide value to them? And I captured uh, client data, their feedback enough to ensure that I was on track, that they were getting what they paid for. Because, like I said, yeah, it's cool to make money off of it, but if I had to make money, I would have just looked for another job. This is more than that for me, and the reason this is more than that for me is something that I um, learned very recently when I was in a room with Matthew Dix, who I take storytelling classes from. And I told Matthew that, Matthew, I really struggle with storytelling because when I start telling a story, I worry that this story does not have a meaningful ending, that I would have wasted the time of the person who is listening to me. Just like what I told you at the beginning of this video, that this is more of a self rant. So if you want to be here, be here. Like all those caveats that I give, it really comes from a place of fear that maybe I'm just wasting somebody else's time. And what Matthew told me was such a light bulb moment. He said that, number one, Aditi, the thing that you think about is primarily a minority female problem. He said, I can assure you that a white heterosexual man born in America is not thinking about this. They think everything that they say is of exponential interest to other people, which I don't completely disagree with. But then he said something which made me think. He said that, I wonder, when you grew up, if you had a parental figure or an authority figure who would ask you to shut up or dismiss your ideas. And I was like, my parents never did that to me. Like I can yap, and my parents heard a lot of parents teacher meeting complaints about my yappage, but they were like, listen, as long as she's getting good grades, fine, she yaps a little bit. But then I realized where that feeling came from. It came from my PhD days, where I remember, or my research days, where mm, I just remember struggling so much with research and publishing my research work, which is another way of saying that the ideas that I had um, constantly were challenged and rejected and denied, and that subconsciously probably plays on my mind. But again, the PhD was just a tip of the iceberg, because before that, even if I trace it back to class 11 and 12, that's when it started, where I took science because my parents said that you can always downgrade from science to arts, but you cannot upgrade from arts to science. And I took science, and I just remember feeling so dumb compared to my friends, because they would just get it. They would go and solve all these like R.D. Sharma books and geez, what else? Tannenbaum and prepare for IIT, and I'm like, what is DDX X square? Like, what is going on? What is covalent bond? What is all of this? I just don't get it. The same thing happened in computer science days when I got my bachelor's and master's, where because again I fought it through in my class 11 and 12. It also helped that I was in CBSE board. Computer science in CBSE is not even close to the complexity of computer science and ICSE. There, I said it. So I got a 95 out of 100 in computer science, and then I got my bachelor's and master's in computer science because my parents thought I was a prodigy because of 95 out of 100. I clocked out. I checked out by the second year. I'm like, I just don't understand shit about fuck what is going on in this class. And again, feeling really, really dumb. And the same thing happened again in PhD, where I came from a bachelor's of computer science background, had never written a word, and somehow I was just expected to know things. Like I was just expected to know APA. I was just expected to know literature review. I was just expected to know how to write a paper when I had no tutelage, I had no training in it. Um, so those are the things that always play in my head when I'm coaching people in EB1, because one of the things that I have seen happen to regular 9 to 5 workers who are trying to do EB1 is this feeling that what they have is not good enough and that they have to do something extra, something artificial to get their profile from where it is to where it needs to be. Truth be told, if I have that triggers that part of my brain where I remember the 16-year-old Aditi, I remember the 21-year-old Aditi, I remember the 27-year-old Aditi, her getting invalidated. Like, how would I have saved her? I would hone in on the fact uh, and focus on things that she already had and build it up from there instead of thopifying thousands of things on her and tell her कि ये करो वो करो ये करो इससे आप enough बन जाओगे. That part gets triggered a lot. When I hear somebody say that, oh, I went to this consultation and this person said, go write papers and do some judging. And they're like, Aditi, I've never done this in my life. I'm a 9 to 5 goer. I work in IT. Now I have to like pay this other dumbass services and produce research, because what else is this person to do? Because they have been brainwashed into thinking that who they are and what they have is not enough. What an unfortunate thing to be or to do. So that's why, like, as much as this is a financially viable solution or a career, I just doing it for money has never been my thing. Don't even think about for 1 second that I don't like money. I come from a business family, so yes, dhanda is good, but soulless dhanda is not good. And this line of work has helped me um, achieve that sense of alignment with deep purpose, and it's like that ikigai thing where all those three things come together is what I'm essentially trying to tell you. Azan is going on in Doha. Okay. So that's what 2025 was, where I challenged myself to see if I could deliver value to my clients without burning myself out by creating more white space in my calendar, so that I could create more conscious content so that I could serve them better etc. But doing these group setting calls also made me realize something else about me, which is how much I enjoy teaching. I enjoy teaching so much because I remember being a professor and being again forced to do research when I did not want to do research. I was the happiest when I taught, when I got to entertain my students and like teach them a thing or two. Complete infotainment channel would go on in my classrooms, and I loved that. But again, I was a professor, so I had this thing called 40-40-20 divide, where 40% teaching, 40% research, and 20% service. So I had to get good at research. But truth be told, um, I found the most joy in teaching. My research informed my teaching, but I found the most joy in teaching. And that's what I saw myself coming back to in these Sunday workshops that I started doing with my clients, to the point where I'm like, man, I want this room to grow. So let's see, let's challenge myself to see if I can deliver as much value to a larger group of people. So this year, I was on steroids when it comes to launching shit. Like I did 21-day challenge, I did EB1 operating system, I did 60-day sprint, I did EB1 execution engine. माने कुछ भी चल रहा है क्योंकि मुझे देखना था कि how do I increase the size of this group, how do I repeat this again and again and see if this thing is working or not. So this year was more of those validation checks. And yes, the year has ended. A lot of those experiments worked. Some did not work. Everything taught me something. But it has been a gratifying year in terms of work. It has been a sucky year when it came to rest, because as much as of the white space that I wanted to create to give myself place for rest and relaxation, not just to rest and relax, but to be more productive after those rest and relaxation. My goodness, like this year, I struggled to just fucking relax. If somebody can teach me how to relax, that'd be great. I will pay you top dollar. 5 steps to relaxation. That would be very nice because my brain has always been working 24/7 this year. My brain has worked. My face has been shoved in front of a laptop and a screen maybe 18 hours out of 24 because I'm always on. Um, but I'm trying to get good at boundary setting where I want to get out of this panic mode where the moment I relax, I feel like the ship is sinking. That I'm not trying hard enough. That this time could have been utilized for better purposes. So in little ways, I am allowing myself to unclench my butt and just breathe. And it's hard. It's very, very, very hard. That's also the reason why I'm looking forward to being with my parents so that there is some church and state separation that happens. Because when I'm in the US, all I think about is work. All I think about is work and mull over work. And I'm like, oh, this has happened. Okay, done. Next thing, what do I do? How do I make this better? What do I do next? Oh my gosh. So yeah, TBD on that in 2026 how that goes. But some other learnings that I've had through this process is number one, how to set boundaries, how to set clear expectations with clients in a way that you respect your time and also deliver values. Number two, taxes. Did you know there's something called pre-tax? The fuck? So this year I filed my taxes and then I get a notice from IRS that I owe them another $1,800. I'm like, ye kahan se aa gaya? Turns out I did not pay quarterly tax. So working on that, also thinking about how to maximize on like solo 401k, SEP IRA, all those administrative stuff, how to show what expense kidhar kahan. That has been another learning experience. So I just want to pause today and because this is a self-documentary video where I want to come back to this maybe 5-10 years from now and look back into this exact moment क्योंकि क्या पता कल हो ना हो. But this exact moment I feel very thankful and grateful and Thakur Papniona, but might I say proud of myself that I juggled all of this. It's not the easiest being a one person army. where I write my own content on LinkedIn. I shoot my own videos. Before shooting the videos, I write the scripts of the videos. I send out emails, and every email that I send out, I just don't want you to read. I want you to feel entertained. Where I launch things to acquire clients, and then I create workshops, create connections with lawyers to provide value to the clients who have worked with me, where I invest time in reading people's petitions and provide critical feedback from the perspective of a quantitative, qualitative researcher, and somebody who has guided people on EB1, while also taking care of taxes, while also figuring out how to maximize on investments. It's a lot. And it's not been easy, but it's very gratifying. I'll tell you that even in my most tired days, I'm more invigorated than a steady paycheck job, because it feels like I'm using everything that God gave me, that I'm utilizing every part of my being that that I've been blessed with. So again, if you have spent $1 on me, on getting a product, if you have spent hundreds of dollars, if you have spent $60, if you have spent $160, if you have spent thousands of dollars, I want to thank you, because of you, I get to live this version of life today. And I'll always remember this part of my life very fondly, where things seem to be aligned, where the things that I love doing, creativity, humor, teaching, networking, growing, challenging myself, all of it seems to be coming together. And I get to spend time with my parents, and not be in depressing ass New York for winter. Like, what more can a girl ask for? So, thank you again for allowing me to live this version of life. And if there's anything that I can do to help you move on in the EB1 journey in a way where you don't have to become somebody else, but we find out a way to utilize what you already have, because what you have is enough. And I'm not just saying it to gas you up, I'm saying it from experience. I'm saying it from facts. It When I leaned into what I had instead of keeping on hoping that I wish I had somebody else's profile, the game changed. Not just for EB1, but for life. So if there's anything that I can do to move the needle on that front, please reach out. Thank you again for watching. And next video is going to be about Tiffany's for EB1. So stay tuned. Thank you.